A new campaign's underway to get the government's bounce-back loans to businesses written off. Back British Business says the government guaranteed these loans directly when issued, therefore removing the usual protection under the Consumer Credit Act. They also claim the loans were taken out by businesses anticipating they'd be open again to pay them back a lot sooner than they actually were after successive lockdowns. In a moment, we'll speak to one of these businesses that took out a bounce-back loan. But first to Wasif Mahmood, who's CEO of Back British Business. Wasif is also a financial services litigation expert. Evening, welcome to Times Radio.
Good evening, Phil.
Can you explain in as simple terms as possible the area of the law where you think you've got a chance to have these loans written off?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to explain it is that there were some avenues that consumers always had as an avenue to kind of take out some redress against banks, but there were some avenues that were stopped. The main avenues that we're looking at over here are the contracts that were taken out between the businesses and the banks being frustrated. So there's an area of law called frustration, and also common mistakes. So these are the two particular areas that we're looking at as a possible avenue to challenge these debts.
Are you bringing this case to uphold the letter of the law or the spirit of the law? In other words, weren't these loans actually offered to business in good faith?
They were to an extent up to the first 12 weeks, which is when they actually took these loans out. There was statements that were being made to some of these businesses that we feel are complete misrepresentations. I mean, there is a statement at the very beginning that was saying to businesses, take these loans out, this is guaranteed, effectively. And those guarantees, businesses originally thought, well, maybe that means me. Effectively, it wasn't. It was to the banks themselves. So what we have now is a situation where you have a lot of businesses that entered into these loans, thought that they were going to be a short lockdown period for which they were taking it out for, and then ended up finding that 18 months later, they're still within these lockdown provisions. And so all of the kind of money that they would have been able to make to be able to support their families, to support themselves, and also grow, effectively stopped. And that period of time that they entered into those contracts effectively didn't allow them to trade in the way they would have otherwise been able to trade and make some sort of living and income.
Ultimately, I assume you'll have to test this in court, won't you? How many businesses would you like for a test case?
To be honest with you, you just need one for a test case. Even, we need a single case, which we've now got quite a few of. But really, it's down to the government to necessarily take this particular action against these businesses because, quite frankly, as it stands, some of these businesses can't take out those loans. Some of them can't pay back those loans. So effectively, we're in a situation where the government, who is the beneficiary of the guarantee, will have to take some action against, the hairdresser down the road.
Mm-hmm. And then when they do that, that's when you can step in, right?
That's exactly when we can step in, yeah. And remember, a lot of these people, there's no other support for most of these people on furlough. There's no other kind of issue for a lot of these businesses, which we're going to hear about, I'm sure, from some of the guests that we've got on, that were freelancers, that were directors. So there was a real avenue of people that didn't get the chance to benefit that other people did. So a lot of people had the benefit of guarantees, of grants, but this didn't apply to a very distinct number of people. We're looking at almost 3.8 million people that were excluded from some of these particular benefits that other people had been able to benefit from.
Wasim, stay with us. Blair Barnette joins us. Blair's company director. Blair took out a £22,000 bounce-back loan for her TV production company because obviously, we remember that all TV production ground to a halt, didn't it, Blair? Welcome.
Hello.
Tell us first of all, then, when you took out this loan, what was your understanding of it? How long did you think the loan was valid for, and what was the purpose of it?
Well, initially, I was applying for just a regular bank loan as a means to an end for a very brief period of time because I was completely excluded from government support and had no income at all. And I just didn't know how I was going to get through a couple of months. And the bank said, well, actually, hang on, wait about a week and a half because there's a new loan that's coming out. It's a government-backed loan, meaning that, if there's a problem, that the government will back this and, they won't come after you. And because the government is backing this loan, you have a much higher chance of being approved. In fact, we're just going to approve you. Whereas if you took out one of our loans, you look really risky right now because you're not employed. So take one of these loans out and you'll be safe and it'll get you through. And I initially just thought it was going to be for a short period of time, that I just needed to be able to pay the bills that I had rolling in, even though I didn't have income rolling in, and it would bridge the gap and I'd start working soon and could have time to pay it back. And now they're starting to chase, and I've only just started trying to be able to go back into somewhat of a norm. I haven't caught up yet. I'm not out of debt yet. And I have no possible way of paying this back immediately to the schedule that they would like. So
is it
it's
for
very
you, Blair?
stressful.
Is this about creating a better repayment schedule so that you can pay it back? Or do you believe it was missold to you and that you shouldn't pay it back?
Well, I like paying things back. However, I've got one foot in and one foot out on this one because I do feel that I shouldn't have been promised that it was guaranteed that somebody had my back in case things went completely wrong, which they have. I'm on the verge of wrapping my company up because I can't see a way out of this. And had I had some sort of furlough or some sort of support, some sort of grant like everybody else did, I wouldn't have needed to take a loan out to begin with. And the loan amount that I got was less than most people got just as furlough or just as a grant. So it doesn't feel very fair. And
And why?
I would like another option.
Yeah. And why are you so close to winding up now when some TV production has picked up?
Well, some TV production has picked up, but it was. I got into such debt during all of this, and so many things changed. The nature of my work changed. The way I operated changed. The places where I worked changed. So there's been a bit of a learning curve trying to shoehorn what I'm currently doing into what the nature of the business is now. It's a lot harder. The hours are a lot longer. Because of the COVID schedule, getting tested every single day, it's not straightforward like it used to be. Plus, also, I have my partner is highly immunocompromised, so I have to be even now very careful with my movements, who I can work for, where I can go and work. It's not free and easy as before. I don't have the same opportunities as I once had, so it's slow for me.
Blair, just on a really basic human level, how are you? How are you doing?
Well, I have to be okay. I have no other choice than being okay. I don't feel okay. Some days, I'm not. I hate to use the word depression because I don't even know how to define that. But I just don't. I don't feel the same. I feel anxiety almost every single morning. I don't sleep very well. My health has changed drastically. And I just don't see how I can get past this on my own. And right now, I do feel very much on my own. I don't feel
Thank you.
support.
No, I can hear, and we can hear the upset in your voice. And I'm grateful to you for coming on Times Radio, Blair, to tell us about it and your situation. That's Blair Barnette, who's a company director working in TV production and art direction. Wasif, final word to you then. You were explaining the process earlier. Yeah. How soon do you think it will be before you are required to bring a case? How likely do you think it is that the government will push people like Blair to pay these back?
It all depends on how the banks and how the government play ball on this, really. There are tens of thousands of people like Blair out there. It's harrowing. It really is. It's a classic example of why the government needs to rethink this, and perhaps even before we get to court, perhaps even suggest writing off some of these particular debts, because these are effectively people that want to do business. We're lawyers, and we're in the business of helping business. And so part and parcel of that means that we think how these businesses make money, how these businesses then pay into the coffers of the Treasury and then effectively help everyone else. This isn't some sort of campaign where people are trying to get something written off. No, one of the things that Blair has probably failed to mention as well as part of her story is the fact that, well, for 18 months she was having to use some of that money just to survive, but then all of the costs of her business were incurring. All of the costs that she wouldn't necessarily have to pay towards being in business were also there. So what we're saying is that these expenses have already been spent, but now that she's in a place, why are we going to put her in a position where she has to effectively file for bankruptcy, which is an extremely expensive scenario? Remember, the only person that gets paid in the very first instance of a bankruptcy is the insolvency practitioner. He gets paid first, or she gets paid first, and then something else happens. Why not give that support to Blair to be able to do her business and effectively pay back into the Treasury's coffers?
Thank you very much for joining me on Times Radio tonight as well to outline the case. That's Wasif Mahmood, CEO of Back British Business and financial services litigation expert. And before that, you heard from Blair Barnette, who's a company director, talking about the legality or otherwise of those bounce back loans that were issued right at the height of the pandemic.